Will the clerk please call the roll?
Good morning. Calling the roll for the Monday, August 8th Board of Control meeting. It is 11:03. Nan Baker.
Here.
Dale Miller.
Sorry to keep you waiting. Here.
Jim Boyle serving as an alternate for Purnell Jones.
Present.
Melanie Say serving as an alternate for Mike Dever.
Here.
Mike Chambers serving as an alternate for Armin Budish.
Here.
Lee Tucker serving as an alternate for the fiscal officer.
Here.
Paul Porter.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Okay, thank you. Next on the agenda is the approval of the minutes from August 1st. I'll make the motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Ms. Lee Tucker. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The minutes are approved. Is there any public comment?
No public comment.
Let's move on to our first item.
First item, BC 2022-473, Department of Human Resources, recommending an award on requisition 9004 and enter into a contract with Mutual Health Services, a division of Medical Mutual Services, LLC, in the amount not to exceed $150,000 for Consolidated Omnibus Budget Reconciliation Act Administrative Services for the period July 1st, 2022 through December 31st, 2025.
Stephen Witt with Human Resources. This is a new contract for our COBRA services, which are always in effect for employees that leave the county for whatever reason. This contract with Medical Mutual is a result of a RFP in which we had 5 submissions. Of those 5 submissions, Medical Mutual scored the highest, and they were the only diversity compliant submission received. We are late with this contract because we need to make sure these benefits butt up to the previous contract. The reason these are late is we had some technical issues with Medical Mutual submitting their contract documents. I guess one of our internet filters were catching those signed documents. So where Medical Mutual had sent us signed documents, we had not received them, which led to delays. But now that we know that, we can watch for that in the future.
Okay, Stephen, thank you. Questions from the board on this item? Mr. Boyle?
Stephen, so yes, obviously they were late, but I mean, why did we started in March? We started mid-March to even begin the process, and obviously we can't have a gap in Cobra. I mean, I mean, that gives us what, April, May, and June, 3 months. I mean, why didn't this start earlier?
So the RFP process does take some time. We started with what we thought was a reasonable schedule, but then once we received the proposals and we started considering actually changing Cobra vendors, that led to an extended review period. As you can see, it was 5 or 6 weeks for just the review of the RFP. As we looked at it and our benefits consultant looked at it and determined that Medical Mutual would be the right way to go.
Yeah, because the longer we move down on this, I mean, our timelines have to be adjusted accordingly. And then I'm looking at the timeline you have here, and it looks like everything was essentially wrapped up by June 29th. And I guess it's more for Paul, I mean, but it's now August 8th. I mean, what happened in July?
I'd have to look that up to get you specifics about whether this one was sent back. Stephen, do you recall once it hit our queue if there were any corrections that were required as part of our review of the document?
So one thing that this timeline did not capture is that on June 29th, it was sent to purchasing, in which it came back and we had to recreate the contract in Infor because Medical Mutual has several different subsidiaries. They have Medical Mutual Life, and then Mutual Health Services, which is who this contract is with. And they had submitted their initial proposal in Infor system under their Medical Mutual account. So the contract system picked up that information for that vendor, but it has the Mutual Health Services has a different tax ID number. So we had to get that confirmed as a vendor in the system and kind of restart the process a little bit there.
And in that case, if I could, Stephen, I would say that the vendor puts their proposal in strategic sourcing, so it was an error on the vendor's part submitting it as a different subsidiary instead of the one that was intended, because that's kind of an automatic designation. Once you make the award in our sourcing platform, that award goes into the contract manager with the unique tax ID identifier that's used for whatever vendor's account is submitting it. So, I mean, if it wasn't caught, that's one thing, but it's kind of on the vendor to make sure that the proposals they submit are being submitted through the correct company or entity, if you will.
No, I get all that. And so what I'm struggling with is that June 29th is what's listed on the items for today is kind of the end date for, hey, it's all in the system. And the reality is just jamming it into the system doesn't, I mean, perhaps then moving forward, we can have, July 6th, contacted them, said, you don't have the right stuff in there, so that instead of me yelling at Stephen, we could be yelling at Med Mutual.
Absolutely.
Sounds like would be a more appropriate, I'm sure for Stephen's perspective, would be a more appropriate response.
That makes sense. And regarding, the timelines that appear in the agenda, the departments submit their timelines as part of the briefing memo document. Since this wasn't something that necessarily required a change to the briefing memo, what likely happened was the contract was recreated, but the briefing memo remained the same. We can ask in the future for departments to do updates to those documents. I bet that's the likely scenario of what happened here. The timelines are based on what's in the briefing memo. That's something that we can look at, though.
Yes.
That's a good catch, though. I think we
Yeah.
should, especially. All right, explains the month.
For sure.
Yeah, because I was looking and I remembered that July 4th was Monday. So, I mean, July 5th, realistically, if it was all done and we could walked it on July 5th, I mean, we realistically would have been a day late, July 1 being that Friday. It would have been like, oh, okay, well, thank you. But obviously there was more stuff that at least didn't show up in it.
Correct.
Fair enough.
Okay. Additional questions on the item? Councilwoman, please.
So in the backup information, it says this project has a critical action path as the new contract begins July 2022, and the county cannot have a gap in Cobra coverage, and the previous contract ended 6/30. So we do have a gap. It's not like we're preventing a gap. The gap is already there. It's been a month. So how do we, yeah,
So we had as Jim mentioned, we had those contract documents and everything sorted out by the end of July.
yeah,
So we actually had services in place.
okay,
So we brought the contract to the Border Control with backed up to there. But we've had a continuation of services since the previous contract ended on June 30th.
okay. So there was really no gap then?
There was no gap in terms of services.
Okay.
We're just bringing the contract to you all late for approval.
Okay, good.
Mr. Boyle, please.
Well, you know, I mean, look, the gap isn't in services, it's an approval. I mean,
Yes.
now the Board of Control is sitting here with a contract in front of them that's already in effect and already in place, and appropriately so, but being asked to approve that which is already kind of done.
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, the risk remains on the vendor, but obviously, this isn't the first time. I understand. I think if we would have had a better updated timeline, a lot of this would have been avoided. Some of your questions would have been answered, but I think everything they did, and the error seems to be with the vendor a little bit, but you're right. Sure. Yeah.
I think, the risk also is that there could be a member here that majority says no. I mean, that is a risk that you're taking also. I mean, in this particular contract, we're not going to do that. It has to happen. But that adds to the risk whenever you bring something late and the service is already provided and we're after the fact. If we said no, that is also a risk that you're taking.
There is, and remember this, we're government, and I know no one likes to hear it, but we have a lot of paperwork that a lot of our outside agencies that work under the county, they can do this in a week. Unfortunately, everything we put in place for equity, for inclusion, for goals, it does take time, and law review, things like that. So, you're right, though. I mean, we got to do a little better, so. Seeing no further questions, I will make a motion to approve. Oh, sorry, Councilman.
I was just wondering whether the vendor for this contract is the same as the current vendor.
It is not. The previous vendor was WageWorks. This vendor is Medical Mutual. One of the things that contributed to the selection of Medical Mutual is they are our benefits administrator. So in doing this, they actually save us some money in terms of fees, in terms of processing time, because they already have the claims information and the plan information.
So, who provided the services in the interim when the contract expired to when this is getting approved?
Medical Mutual.
So they agreed to start early even
Yes.
though it had not been approved. Okay. Okay.
And again, it's not our intention to bring these contracts to the Board of Control for approval late. Just there were circumstances in this one, and with each iteration, we try and get a little bit better.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Any final questions? Seeing none, I'll make the motion to approve the item. Is there a second? Seconded by Mr. Boyle. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The item is approved. Next item.
Next item, BC 2022-474, Department of Information Technology, submitting an amendment to a contract with Great Northern Consulting LLC for support and maintenance on 5 Sun Solaris Operation System T4 servers and remote support of Unix platforms for the period June 30th, 2015 through June 29th, 2024, to expand the scope of services for the annual renewal of Oracle Premier support effective June 30th, 2022, and for additional funds in the amount not to exceed $19,849.03.
Good morning, Janelle Green, Department of IT. This is our annual support for Oracle services. This is actually an amendment to a contract we have with Great Northern that provides some staff augmentation support for our Sun Solaris servers. This is support of the operating system that sits on those servers. And just to give you some background as far as what applications are on there, we have SAP, NVP, and an HHS database, which will eventually be going away, but we needed to maintain the support on this, just to make sure we can migrate data over to the data lake. So while we evaluated where we were in the process of migrating the data, we belatedly realized that we still needed to maintain this support, and that's why we're bringing this to you late.
Okay, thank you, Janelle. Questions from the board? Mr. Boyle, please. No.
Saw that why didn't we extend it all the way, the contract ends at the end of June, why didn't we just go all the way out to June with it?
To
June of 24, I'm sorry.
So this is for the Oracle environment. So the thought of it is that we'll be transitioning off of this. So,
Okay.
So
All right.
SAP is no longer actively in use because of the implementation of the ERP. MVP, excuse me, will be transitioning through Harris, and HHS will be transitioning off. So we're only doing it for 1 year for the Oracle support. Yes, fingers and toes
So I'm
crossed,
just
yes.
saying, so in June of 2023, you're not gonna be like, hey, we need another year? Because
Hopefully not.
All right, that's fine.
We're making our
I mean-
best efforts not to do that.
Perfect. Thank you.
Sure.
Additional questions on the item? Seeing none, I will make the motion to approve this item. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Miller. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The item's approved. Next item, please.
Next item, BC 2022-475, Department of Information Technology, submitting an RFP exemption, which will result in an award recommendation to AdviseX Technologies in the amount not to exceed $251,781.49 for a state contract purchase of high-density HPE enclosures to provide consolidated infrastructure for server, storage, and networking products, and recommending the award in connection with said RFP exemption.
Janelle Green, Department of IT. This item is a part of that continuing disaster recovery project that we're doing with the support of the ARPA funds and the revenue replacement. We have a larger projects for 22 and 23, and we have about $4.3 million that we were allocated, and this will take us down to about $80,000 left of those funds that we don't have allocated specifically to a project yet, and we'll be bringing those items to you within the coming weeks.
Thank you, Janelle. Questions from the board? Seeing no questions, I will make a motion to approve the item. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by, I believe, Councilman Miller.
Yeah.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The item is approved. Next item.
Next item, BC 2022-476, Department of Information Technology, submitting an RFP exemption, which will result in an award recommendation to AdviseX Technologies in the amount not to exceed $6,781 for the purchase of 2 HP 5820 switches, 20 cables, and 8 transceivers for StoreOne's appliances and VMware equipment, and recommending the award in connection with said RFP exemption.
Janelle Green, Department of IT. This equipment is to essentially speed up the speed of which our employees will be able to access files in a virtual environment. I can get into what a virtual environment means, but I don't want to bore you. But again, it's to ensure that we can speed up the process by which we access files.
Thank you, Janelle. Questions from the board? Please.
I'm just curious, for such a small amount of money, this isn't already incorporated into a contract that we already have?
This was in process before we started that, and this particular vendor is not a part of that contract.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Additional questions? Seeing none, I will make the motion to approve the item. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Boyle. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? The item is approved. Next item?
Next item, BC 2022-477, Department of Information Technology, on behalf of the Department of Public Works, submitting an RFP exemption, which will result in an award recommendation to TEC Communications Incorporated in the amount not to exceed $11,233.22 for a state contract purchase of 1 additional network switch and 2 access points for the central booking project at the Cuyahoga County Justice Center, and recommending the award in connection with said RFP exemption.
Janelle Green, Department of IT, on behalf of the Department of Public Works. This item is to basically secure our reserve stock. As we all know that the central booking is open and active. We used our reserve stock to implement this project. So we're backfilling with the items that we included in this project on behalf of the Public Works. We do keep a backstop on hand just for break fixes in the event something goes down somewhere, we're able to make those repairs.
Okay, thank you again. Questions from the board? Seeing no questions, I will make the motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by, I think, Ms. Lee Tucker. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? The item is approved. Next item?
Next item, BC 2022-478, Department of Information Technology, on behalf of the Department of Health and Human Services, submitting an RFP exemption which will result in an award recommendation to Integrated Precision Systems in the amount not to exceed $26,805.14 for a state contract purchase of access control proximity readers for installation on 11 doors at the Jane Edna Hunter Building, and recommending the award in connection with said RFP exemption.
Janelle Green, Department of IT. This one is on behalf of the Department of HHS. This is to, as Sharon read off, this is to include 11-door access proximity readers, which is connected to our badging system, so we can track who is coming and going in certain areas of the building. This is in addition to what was already on the building. And once this gets implemented, it falls into our maintenance contract that we already had in place with IPS.
Okay, thank you. Questions on the board? Please.
Just curious why this isn't a capital expense?
It's not a building, you know, we're not doing major work. This is just adding on some readers. This wouldn't necessarily qualify as a capital project.
So the purchase of access control proximity readers for installation, that's not considered something hardware? Or?
I mean, it is hardware, so I don't believe it would fall into a capital project per se.
Had it been part of one big renovation, they might have done it that way, but
Right.
it's just an isolated, you know, yeah. Okay, seeing no further questions, I will make the motion to approve this item. Do I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Miss Melanie Say. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? The item is approved. Next item?
Thank
Next
you.
item, BC 2022-479, Department of Purchasing, on behalf of the County Treasurer's Office, submitting an amendment to a master services agreement with Key Bank National Association for banking and treasury services for the period April 1st, 2020 through March 31st, 2024, for additional funds for procurement card program services for various departments in the total amount not to exceed $5,500, for the Department of Public Works in the amount not to exceed $5,000, and the Department of Human Resources in the amount not to exceed $500.
Good morning, Paul Porter, Director, Department of Purchasing. This is an amendment with a minor change to the P-Card or Procurement Card Program Services Master Agreement that the Department of Purchasing helps oversee in conjunction with the County Treasurer's Office. We are updating the encumbered amounts, which is the amount up to which these departments can spend, for the Department of Public Works in the amount not to exceed $5,000, and the Department of Human Resources in the amount not to exceed $500. Departments, as you know, can use the P cards to make purchases when needed in accordance with the P card guidelines through the Ohio Revised Code. Departments sometimes use these in the case of Public Works if they have to buy materials when they're out for a job. In the case of other departments, if they have to pay a fee online for registration, for instance. So it makes the purchasing process easier, but there's no less scrutiny than any other purchase that would occur through the usual process. Happy to answer any questions.
Do we have any questions for Paul?
What was the dollar amounts before? What was it before? You moved Public Works to 5,000 and HR to 500. Do you remember what they were before? You can send it to me
Sure.
later.
I'll send it to you later because I don't want to give the wrong amount and I don't have that written in the backup here. I should have brought that.
No,
with
that's fine.
me.
I mean, from the Public Works perspective.
I think it's more, they have a lot more. than
Yeah,
that.
it's a fairly small
This-
amount for both.
This is
Yeah,
just
I
an
was gonna say,
additional,
I think it's
yeah.
great. I mean,
Yep, it's
it
additional.
streamlines things. I know from Public Works, it's really helpful.
Yep.
It is
And
handy.
it's not saying we are going to spend
enough.
that amount, it's just, think of it like a credit limit on your own credit card. The money's there, when you need to.
The County Auditors Association is looking to bring credit cards. They want to get the group of the 88 sponsoring to push out credit cards instead of P cards. A lot of them want that convenience, so I tried arguing, we already have a P card, why not do that? But it's just a little information, so
Sure.
that might be
You're
coming.
gonna take the airline miles? Is that what we're doing here?
Well, a lot of them, that's exactly what some of them said. There's benefits and perks, rebates that, and I think you get that with this as well, do you not? With the P card, do we get any kind of
I'm not
rebate?
sure because it's set up more like a debit
Yeah,
account.
okay.
I don't think we get those kind of
But that was part of the
rewards. I
reason.
can double check
They were
that.
looking to get rebates back to the county. And,
Yeah.
I know Merriman just got back from Puerto Rico. So
Oh,
let's
boy.
Let's start. The IG list, oh, no, they're not here, all right.
All right, we're beating this. Okay, I will make the motion to approve this item. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Boyle. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Item approved. Next item.
Next item, BC 2022-480, Office of the Medical Examiner, recommending an award on a purchase order to Treasurer, State of Ohio, Ohio State Highway Patrol, in the amount not to exceed $7,200 for law enforcement automated data system subscription services for the period August 1st, 2022 through July 31st, 2023.
Hugh Shannon, Medical Examiner's Office. This is our annual subscription access to LEADS. That's law enforcement database that connects to our automated fingerprint system.
Okay, thank you, Hugh. Are there questions for Hugh on this item? Yes, please.
So it says general fund, but is this coming out of the medical examiner's funding?
Well, the crime lab is part of the general fund now, so.
So when it's deducted, it'll be the crime lab, general fund?
Right.
Thanks.
It comes out of their accounting unit, which is, yeah, yep. Okay, good. Additional questions? Seeing no further questions, I'll make motion to approve. Is there a second? Seconded by Councilwoman Baker. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Item approved. Next item?
Next item, BC 2022-481, Office of the Medical Examiner, submitting an RFP exemption which will result in an award recommendation to MedPro Diagnostics LLC in the amount not to exceed $29,995 for the purchase of a replacement, fully refurbished Secura VIP6 tissue processor for the histology department, and recommending the award in connection with said RFP exemption.
Hugh Shannon, again, Medical Examiner's Office. This is for our histology department. They provide slides for the medical staff of various tissues that are taken at autopsy. We had an opportunity here to save some money. We found an established vendor who provided us with a refurbished machine at a significant savings, and we wanted to get on that as quickly as we could, so that's the reason for the exemption.
Hey, thank you, Hugh. Questions from the board? Seeing no questions, I will make the motion to approve. Is there a second? Seconded by Miss Melanie Say. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? The item is approved.
Thank you.
Moving on to exemptions.
Next item, BC 2022-482, Department of Health and Human Services, Community Initiatives Division, Office of Homeless Services, requesting to amend Board Approval Number BC 2022-97, dated February 14th, 2022, which approved an alternative procurement process resulting in an award recommendation on requisition 7099 for the 2021 Emergency Solutions Grant, utilizing an alternative funding source, to Emerald Development and Economic Network Incorporated for rapid rehousing services for the period January 1st, 2022 through December 31st, 2023, by changing the not-to-exceed amount from $1,277,298 to $1,935,300.
Good morning, Erin Meriden, Office of Homeless Services. So we are submitting a request to just increase the amount of the state award that is going to Eden, which is the identified provider. I don't know, I can provide a little bit more detail, but as Sharon mentioned, there was already an approval for an alt procurement on this, and we just got additional information about how the funding could be allocated, and so now we're increasing the award amount to Eden.
Okay, thank you. Questions from the board? Mr. Boyle, good? Yeah? Okay, sorry. Well, seeing no questions, I'll make the motion to approve the item. Is there a second? Second by Councilman Miller. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The item's approved. Next
Thank
item.
you.
Thank you.
We are on the consent agenda, items BC 2022-483 through 487.
Okay, board members, take a moment or two. Let me know if you have any questions on any of them. We need a little more time. No problem. Okay, great. I will make a motion to approve today's consent agenda items as listed. Do I have a second? Seconded by Mr. Boyle. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? The item is approved. Moving on to other business.
There is no other business
Is there any additional public comment?
and no public comment.
Therefore, I'll make the motion to adjourn. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Lee Tucker. All in favor to adjourn, say aye.
Aye.
Aye.